We went coast to coast. Now the focus is on Middle America. Wall Street Journal article came out last week that said Madison Avenue is in crisis. Midwestern ad agencies see an opportunity. That was written by Katy Dayton, great reporter over at the Journal.
Great.
And to speak on this, we have one of the featured people in that article. Katy Hornaday is the CEO of BarkleyOKRP. We're going to talk about this notion that the Middle America is now having a moment in advertising as these major holding companies maybe are going through a little bit of shift.
Yeah, no better person to talk about this too, because Barkley and OKRP merged together a couple of years ago. I believe Barkley was based in Kansas City and then OKRP based in Chicago. You got the Midwest values here, brought them together, making a large independent agency, one of the largest ones out there, Jack. So you don't need to be in LA, you don't need to be in New York to be a good ad agency.
Well, that's the argument that the article is kind of making, and getting to those roots, but also how much more even the playing field is for smaller agencies that aren't on the coast to tap into the data, the technology that's much more available than it was even 2-3 years ago.
Our next HQ is going to be in Des Moines, Iowa, Jack.
That's breaking news. Well, with that being said, let's bring her in. Katy Hornaday, CEO of BarkleyOKRP. Ladies and gentlemen, Katy Hornaday, CEO of BarkleyOKRP, joins the show. Katy, how you doing?
Good morning. I am so good. I'm so good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Well, it's great to have you here. Watch this. Dramatic. Madison Avenue is in crisis. Midwestern ad agencies see an opportunity. That's the Wall Street Journal article that everybody has their eyes on right now. Written by Katy Dayton. Great reporting by her, by the way. Shout out. Katy, you see this headline. BarkleyOKRP, obviously a part of this report and this broader idea of Middle America, big indie. When you see the headline, what's going through your mind? What's your reaction?
I have to send this to my mom. I made it to the Wall Street Journal, Mom. That first. And then also, I think it felt really validating for some of the stuff we're starting to see. And
right.
For me, Katy, you're right. It's weird since we share a name, but Katy had this great thought, this premise of sort of connecting the dots of what's happening in the holdcos. And she reached out and asked if we would be willing to talk about it. And it was kind of a fascinating piece to be a part of because we weren't necessarily sitting in the Midwest going, gosh, we're just, having a lot of momentum because we're in the Midwest. But I think overall the theme is a lot of clients looking for just something different, While there's a little bit of instability and things are changing, where are there opportunities to maybe find an agency model or even the roots of an agency being somewhere other than what we've seen for so long?
And I'm curious about that. And from your perspective, if you agree that Madison Avenue might be in a crisis right now, what are some of the issues that have caused it? And what are like the heartland or what are the non-coastal?
That's the word I learned.
Non-coastal.
This is a phrase that I'm becoming more privy to myself. Non-coastal.
I like that. So what are the non-coastal shops getting right? And I'll say the question again. If Madison Avenue is in crisis, what is exactly broken inside the big agency model, and what are the non-coastal agencies getting right?
Well, I will say I don't think it's for me to define if they're in crisis or not. But I do think that what you're seeing with the mergers and, the thing that blows my mind is 100,000 people being part of one agency. And what does that mean? I think there's a lot of sussing out to do. And I think when an agency environment feels a little unstable, what does that signal to a client? And what does it signal to the people who work there? I think those are sort of the interesting pieces of it. We're starting to talk to a lot of talent who are saying, being part of these holding companies, that's shifting the way that I approach my job or how I feel about how I service my client. And I think those are places where it gets a little scary for clients. Who am I speaking to every day, and who cares deeply about my brand and how to sort of connect the pieces and help us be successful? And so I think that's where we're seeing opportunity. Obviously, it's my job as the CEO of BarkleyOKRP to believe deeply in the model that we have, but we have scale, so it's not a small boutique where you have to stitch a lot of boutiques together, but we also aren't so big that you feel like you're going to get lost in it. And I think there's some magic in that hasn't existed in the market in the past.
Yeah, I keep drawing back to this thought. You know, you see like with advancements in technology, it is the responsibility of an advertising agency to use technology to like optimize and like make them better at their jobs. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. But then you almost get to a point where do you feel like it's gone too far? And that's kind of what the article makes the case of, in my opinion, is this reliance on data and technology to provide information about your audience almost has removed the notion of going and meeting your audience and actually talking to real humans, because you feel like you can get all that data from, you know, different sources and technology. Do you feel like we've gone too far in data to where marketing has become way less human and way more reliant on stats and personas?
You know what? I'd actually look at it a different way. I think that holding companies have made deep investments for a long time in data and in technology, but they made them a long time ago, and everything is changing so much that it takes a lot to unwind all of that at their scale. The great part about data and technology now is agencies of our scale and smaller have access to it much more readily. You can build things faster. You don't need the capital of a holding company to have really the tools that you need to meet that need and to marry it with caring about the consumer, being close to actual people, and bringing those things together. You know, they've been building this thing for a really, really long time, and it's gotten so large that now they have to figure out how do you use that in a world that's shifting every day.
Yeah, it's almost like it just feels like almost a different business model. Mm-hmm. You know, like I'm thinking about these between like a smaller middle America indie agency versus like a holding company. I just think that the business models are different. Like to me, it just feels like on the outside, it does feel different. Katie, is that way off base?
No, I mean, I think it is different. I think you also look at, I believe it was Adweek when they first announced the Omnicom merger. You know, you saw the like sprawling org chart of all of the agencies that were a part of it. That's a complicated model to figure out. How do you bring those things together? And when you bring those things together, how are they all speaking the same language that's in service of that same singular client? Maybe sometimes you end up with magic in a bottle and it works, but I think a lot of times it's how do you bring that web of agencies and make it feel like it's actually showing up for that business that you're working with as opposed to just your own.
And you know, this is interesting because BarkleyOKRP, no small shop, Jack.
Big indie.
Big indie.
Come on.
That's right. That's right.
Bindi.
And that was a significant merger back, what was it, 2024, I believe?
Yeah, we're coming up on 2 years in March.
Yes,
And that really shifted the industry here. And you're growing. And you guys also have opened up a New York office. And you were quoted saying you built the New York office with your Midwestern terms in mind here.
Katie said, we're doing it on my terms. We're doing it on our terms. We're not here just 'cause.
That's right. Those Midwestern terms. So can you explain to me what the Midwestern terms are? What do you refuse to do?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we refuse to build it as a single capability, right? So it would have been easy to say, like, let's build more media team out of just our New York office. But instead, it's a fully integrated team. And that fully integrated team also works with all of our different offices. So nobody is sort of standalone in New York. The other thing that I think is interesting about our New York office is probably over 50% of the talent came from one of our other offices and moved to New York and wanted to stay with the agency. So you sort of inherently have this like Midwestern culture inside of our New York space. We've had space in New York for years, actually since about 2018. We were like, you know, had a collection of desks shared in another agency space, but this is our first time that we have our own space, and it's very cool. It's actually our first ever office space that is BarkleyOKRP, like from day one.
We're bringing the family together in this house.
I guess like even kind of going back in your memory of the merger itself, like what were some of those core principles of bringing together Barkley and OKRP that you wish like more people knew about?
Yeah, you know, I often look back on that and I think that we were unbelievably intentional about it. Before we even actually signed the paperwork, we brought all of the leadership teams, and I don't just mean like just the C-suite, like everybody who were key leaders in the business. We were all together for 3 days in Chicago.
Sorry, I just kicked the table. Sorry, Katie. That was
You were
terrible
so
timing.
excited about our leadership offsite, Jack. I could tell.
Well, listen,
They did a leadership offsite.
they did. I know. I'm listening. I just had to adjust my foot.
So we got everybody together for about 3 days and like got into the nitty gritty of like, what's this going to be like? Who's going to report to who? What does this mean for our teams? Who are going to be the people in our teams that are going to be nervous? How are we going to tell this story? And then after that, about 6 months later, we brought everyone in the entire company to Kansas City for a full day or 2 days where we had a big party. And then we also had like a big meeting where we talked about like, what does it mean to be big indie? What are we building? And that was over a year and a half ago. And so we've just continued to refine how we bring everybody together. This is so silly, but like, I love stuff like this. Every other week, the whole agency is on an all agency stand-up call. And now in the weeks in between, I send these like video emails just talking about what I'm, seeing in the market, what I'm excited about, what work we're proud of. And I think those are the little things that make a merger feel not faceless. Like you're individual human beings who matter in this. And if we want you to show up every day and do your best work and care deeply about what you do, you got to feel like we do the same for you.
Yeah, it does feel like I think we've talked about it before, Gino, on like some of the stuff that we've done. Like the Barkley OKRP merger feels like this is gonna be a glaze, Katie, but kind of the gold standard of like what a merger can look like, just based on like the success. Obviously, we're not in the agency, in the office, so I can't speak for like the agency. But from our perspective, like the new business wins, you all won Jiffy Lube earlier this year, which is a big one, and just like the consistent work that's come out feels like it's been successful in like the last 2 years. And I guess like bringing it back to the article and like the idea of like this middle America and maybe what coastal agencies miss out on. Do you feel like in your time just at Barkley OKRP or before the agency, and you mentioned it too, but like, has it become a shift that you've noticed? Because you've been there since 2012, correct?
Yeah, I've been there a long time. I guess yes, because I do think when I started my career at Crispin, and then I went to Mullen, and then I came to the middle of the country. It's where I was from, and I knew that it was the right thing for our family, but I also didn't want to like rest on my laurels, right? So I come to this agency, and the thing that excited me always about being there was that it always felt like it was ready to become something. It was always like malleable enough and willing to evolve into an agency that could become one of the big players. I think it took a really long time for clients and the industry to be open to that. I used to joke that my number one goal was to stop showing up in the press as Barkley of Kansas City. Like I hated that because nobody ever said like Wyden of Portland. The agency stood on its own terms. And I think as everything has evolved and there's been more openness in the industry and in clients, we've stopped having to earmark everything with whether or not you're on one of the coasts, and you can sort of stand on your reputation alone if you've built an agency that can do that.
So, I think I know the answer to this next question, but 10 years from now, if you have a crystal ball, does geography even matter in advertising?
That's interesting because I think that part of the root of why Katie did that article was when we all went remote, we started to tell this story that location didn't matter. So I don't think that location matters, but I think the roots of an agency culture and what they stand for and how that shows up in the work and the perspectives they bring, I think that will still matter.
Yeah, I thought just the last thing I'll say, but like the article, it made me do a little introspection myself, because as someone who does work in New York City, has a very like specific urban life, the vast majority of people, despite all my beliefs, don't actually live the life that I live, nor do they want to live the life that I live.
Not a lot of people want to live your life, Jack.
I'd say most people don't want to live my life, but it did kind of like beg that question. Like, although maybe location doesn't matter, understanding and like relating to an audience especially for like brand marketing, has really never mattered more for these people that are in the middle of America. Their feeds are probably dominated by like people living their lives in these massive metropolitan cities, and they're like, I don't really live that life. I don't care about that life. But I want to hear your thoughts on that, Katie. Like, geography doesn't matter, but understanding the geography of your audience feels like it matters now more than ever.
Well, and I totally agree with that. And Jack, I would say the way that our feeds are built, they are probably not being surrounded by things that feel like urban lifestyles. And so when brands go like wholeheartedly in that direction, I think it can feel tone deaf to them. I could think it can feel like it doesn't land or it doesn't connect, because their echo chamber maybe looks different. It's not cool, street photography. Instead, it's mommy bloggers, and it's it's like, so I think that a really deep understanding of the consumer, and I actually think there's a lot of awesome tech and AI tools that are helping us get even smarter and closer to real consumers. So it's not like a proxy for them, but helping us know more, be more curious, ask better questions, even, bringing together focus groups of real people and being able to pull out what we can learn from them quicker so we can actually use those insights. That's been like really helpful for us finding great understanding of audiences in pitches, but even in, current clients, and making sure that the work actually lands and connects.
Yeah, I think my big takeaway is like this tech and all of that is so much more available, readily available, and not just reserved for the agencies or holding companies that have the biggest budget to throw around. Like, all this technology seems to be never more available. So it's going to come down to the intangibles, Gino. You can mark that down.
Intangibles.
Katie, thank you so much for the time. Appreciate you calling in from Kansas City, Missouri. Oh, I'd love to get down there soon.
Right now.
Oh, you in Seattle right now?
I'm in Seattle. That's okay. I'll be back in Kansas City on Thursday.
Okay, Katy Hornaday back in Kansas City on Thursday. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.